didn't say it. Oh, there it goes.
Hi, everyone. This is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. I am thrilled today to bring you Zach Tidwell. He has an amazing story. He's an inspiration to everyone, and I'm thrilled you're here. Hi, Zach. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Now, Zach, I'm just going to do a quick biography about you, and then we're going to get started. So, Zach Tidwell is completely blind, Marine Corps veteran, and suicide survivor, best known for his lighthearted approach to the hard topics in life and ability to inspire others. Having shot himself in the head in the attempt to take his own life, he woke up completely blind and deaf in 1 year, and with a new perspective on life. At only 28 years old, Zach now shares his story and the lessons he's learned along the way to save lives and motivate others to take control and write the stories of their own futures. So, Zach, thank you so much today. I'm so thrilled to have you. Let's start from the beginning, okay, Zach?
You want me to just go
Yeah,
or what?
just let's go right into where did this all start, Zach?
Yeah, I was in the Marines for 4 years and was a machine gunner and deployed twice, but thankfully never saw combat and still wound up in a horrible place by the time that I was discharged in August of 2018. I had been married and on my second deployment found out that my wife was having an affair. And when I came home, I tried to save the relationship, but didn't work out. And I filed for divorce around January of 2018. And I was dealing with things at that point. I was just keeping myself really busy because I found that the more exhausted I was at the end of each day, the less I kind of dawdled on things that had happened. And, I wasn't the happiest that I'd ever been, but I was dealing with it. And that changed when I was in a motorcycle accident in March of 2018. I had a severe concussion from the motorcycle accident, and things shifted after that. I became very agitated and impulsive and really started to struggle with sleeping and depression. And along that path, I found that having a couple drinks before bedtime would help me fall asleep. It wouldn't necessarily help me stay asleep, but it was at least I wasn't laying in bed awake for a couple hours before I did fall asleep. And that turned into an alcohol problem over the course of time. I finished my enlistment and was honorably discharged in August of 2018, started going to school and was working full time while I went to school full time and was keeping up appearances that I was okay, but I was progressing into a worse and worse place. My drinking was getting worse, and I wasn't speaking up about my depression. I was going so far as to keep up appearances and do everything I could to make it seem like I was doing okay because I thought it was weak to speak up. And I thought that because I had been able to just grit my teeth through everything and plow through things in the Marine Corps, that I would be able to do the same thing with my mental health. And that wasn't the case. And it caught up with me. So about a year after the motorcycle accident in March of 2019, I held a gun between my eyes and pulled the trigger because I felt that I had reached this point where I felt that the space I was in was inescapable, which was wild to think when, especially now, knowing how much just speaking up and talking about the things that I struggle with has helped me in the time since I woke up with a bullet hole in my forehead. But I was in an I wasn't in a rational state of mind anymore, and I'd reached the point where I wasn't thinking straight, and so I shot myself, and that was almost 6 years ago.
Oh my goodness, Zach. My heart goes out to you and everyone's here. I know that. And I also know from there you had to find some inner strength to bring yourself back out of that. Now I know you had help in the hospital course and psychology help, but take us from there. What turned your life at that moment? What made you get back up?
I was in the hospital for 51 days and had to have facial reconstruction surgery. And for the first little bit, they told me that I was going to get sight back in my left eye because my right optic nerve was severed and the left one wasn't. But At some point, it became clear that that nerve was dying or had died, and that that sight wasn't coming back. And they just dropped it in my lap one day when I was in the ICU, and the doctors were making their rounds. No warning, no nothing. Just one of the doctors, with her incredible bedside manner, tossed out something to the effect of I was going to be blind for the rest of my life. And when my parents got to the hospital later that day, and we were kind of talking through everything, what my life might look like now that we knew I was going to be totally blind.
Mhm.
They, they were like, well, you can get a guide dog and maybe you can be a therapist. And my first thought went back to the salt and pepper shakers in the Marine Corps Chow Hall on the part of base where I was stationed on Camp Pendleton. The salt and pepper shakers in very fine print said made proudly by the blind and visually impaired on them. And so without giving my parents any of that context, I said, I'm not making effing salt and pepper shakers because and of
Well,
course I had
that's kind of good incentive though, right, Zach?
yeah, but I was like, I will do something more meaningful with my life than that. I'm a Marine. I've always aimed for high goals and achieve them, and I will continue to do that. I'm not just because I made this mistake and I've done this to myself, I'm not going to become a bump on a log. And so I chased my independence and I chased getting back into all the things that I used to do. So
Sure.
in December of that same year, about 8.5 months after I pulled the trigger, I was snowboarding in the Rocky Mountains. A month after that, I was back in college. 6 months after that, I was back out on my own. And I didn't really start to struggle or even grieve the loss of my sight until early in 2021. I was fully back out on my own and really kind of stumbling through things. Yeah, I had moved to downtown Denver to go to college, and I'd go, I'd force myself to go walk across campus and I'd get lost, horribly lost, and have to call someone and try and figure out where I was at. But I
Oh,
was
okay.
figuring it out. But I was very socially isolated. And it seems that as the pace of things slowed down, especially because that was the heart of the lockdowns, everything kind of registered that okay, this is my life now. Things are very difficult. Things are totally different. And I finally started to struggle. And I would argue that that is even having reached the point of shooting myself, I still think that I went through worse depression in that those several months in the beginning of 2021. But what
Okay.
was different, because I did reach the point that I didn't want to be here anymore, was that I had learned from my mistakes and I spoke up, even though I was terrified because I thought I was going to be whisked away to a mental health hospital and sedated and kept there until someone deemed that I wasn't a harm or a risk to myself. But I knew where that would lead if I didn't speak up. And so I told my psychologist, and she was just there for me instead of calling the cops or, freaking out. And I told her that I had these feelings of not wanting to be alive. I didn't know why, but I wasn't going to act on them. And so we worked through it. And over the course of those several months, from then on through the rest of those couple months, we went from talking once a week to every day and sometimes even multiple times a day because it was like pulling teeth. It really sometimes it was minute to minute. I mean, it was it was absolutely the hardest time of my life. And but I got through it and I learned something very valuable there in that, okay, now I've been through that pain and I stayed out of the bottle for that. I've been through it and I've seen that speaking up, I can get through it and it will get better and it gets easier with time. And so I just kept moving on from there. And I reached a point in college where my college wasn't making any of my coursework accessible like it was legally obligated to do so. And that made me very frustrated. So I started researching like why I could pay my bills, but why, or write a research paper, but why couldn't I do my math homework? And I found out that it all came down to the code running behind the scenes of each piece of software that I was accessing, whether that be an app or a website. Software developers have to take specific steps to make things accessible to access technologies. And so I dropped out of college and decided I was going to become part of the solution. Meanwhile, I had started struggling with alcoholism. I hadn't realized I was an alcoholic before I shot myself. I definitely was. I just didn't realize it. And I picked up drinking again, and that lasted for about 2.5 years. But along that path, I released so I started teaching myself how to code in October of 2021, and my first app came out in July of 2023. Been struggling with alcohol the whole time. I had tried an outpatient rehab facility or outpatient rehab program. I tried AA. I even finally accepted that I couldn't do it on my own and went to an inpatient rehab facility. And while I was there, was diagnosed with a horrendous, incurable genetic disease called Huntington's disease. And the self-pity was kind of renewed, and I leaned
Oh,
into
I
my drinking.
understand
But
that, Zach.
yeah, and so things continued on that path, but I kept plugging away on the software development side of things. I kept teaching and I kept working or kept teaching myself and kept working on the project that I had in mind. And when that came out in July of 2023, things shifted for me. First of all, my work was recognized and won a couple awards for the fact that it looked and functioned normally for anyone without disabilities, but wasn't basically accessible to anyone with a physical disability, whether they were colorblind, blind, totally deaf, and totally blind, had no arms, were paralyzed. Anyone could use it because I took those steps that I had found out were possible for software developers to do. And but I also in that coming out and it being well received and getting all these kind messages from people that appreciated what I was doing, I kind of rediscovered myself. And I had an identity again. I hadn't realized that I had lost it, but I had. When I shot myself, I lost everything, and including my independence and kind of
Mhm.
my lane in life that I thought I was going to go down. And so finally I had that again. And that's when I started making progress in my sobriety. I strung together a month the first time. And this is after, at the worst of my drinking, I would black out. I would go on blackout binges for 2 or 3 days straight, recover for 2 or 3 days, and then go do it all over again. But I strung together a month and then kind of fell off the wagon. And I strung together 2.5 months and fell off the wagon on December 5th of 2023. But I haven't had a drink since then. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So it's about time after 2.5 years of trying. It's about time it worked out. But um, and so now as I realized I was actually going to get sober because for a while I was hopeless. I honestly thought that my drinking was going to kill me because nothing I was trying worked. And but I started writing a book a little over a year ago now and finished the first draft of that in November on Thanksgiving, actually. I'm plugging away through the second draft, and it really dives into
Yeah.
everything that I did wrong leading up to the suicide attempt, everything that I've struggled with since, and all the things that I've done right and learned along the way. And I started my own podcast, which is called Going In Blind with Zach Tidwell. That's out. I'm working on a new software project that'll hopefully address some of the issues that I had in college and make education a little more accessible for people with disabilities. And I'm speaking and doing things like this because I hope that sharing my story will talk someone else off the ledge and that other people hearing it who maybe aren't necessarily dealing with depression will, maybe it'll open up these conversations because people tend to avoid these uncomfortable subjects because I think it's getting better, but they are still generally taboo in our culture. But these are things that need to be talked about. This is a real problem, especially in the veteran community and first responders. And so that's kind of brings us to today in a
It
very as
does.
concise a
First,
way
I
as
want to,
possible.
if I may, Zach, first, I want to say a couple of things to you. One, thank you for your service, my friend. Okay. I really want to say that to you. Thank you for your service. That all to all veterans. Thank you. Okay. So you come back and you now have gone through trauma that is unbelievable. I took note that you won some awards. You have found what we might call a raison d'etre, a reason for getting up every day. You have achieved things that My goodness, no one could even imagine. Your app, by the way, fantastic.
Thank you.
2023, you had that app out, and now you're helping everyone with disabilities. Unbelievable. This is such an inspiration to absolutely everyone. And I know that that's given you strength inside. On top of everything, Huntington's disease, you have that, you know that you're very aware of what's going to happen, and yet you continue on and look at the positive attitude. So let's bring it all back to today. So first, I did want to thank you, and I want to tell you how incredibly proud we all are of you. But
Thank you.
now, today, where are we going forward, Zach?
Oh gosh, I'm still, I think I kind of skipped over, I was
You go
snowboarding,
right back where you want to go. This is your floor, my friend.
Okay. I was in the interest of trying to be brief. I think I skipped over some stuff.
You don't have to be brief with me. We're good.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I'm working on a new software project that I can't really get too much into yet. This
Sure.
book is going to be a very big thing for me personally. It's been kind of painful to write, and it brought up some things that I didn't realize that I hadn't dealt with yet. So
Okay.
it's some more growth has come out of that, but really getting out there more on the public speaking front. But I'm very, very active. And so something that keeps me sane that I try and talk about because I think it kind of gets overlooked when people are talking about mental health.
Yes.
You know, I work out a lot, but I ski and rock climb and whitewater kayak and compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and surf and kind of jump on any other opportunity that I get to go try these things. And hopefully someone else that's out there and maybe is early on in a disability and hears that and realizes that they can still live a normal life. You have to do things differently, but you can find ways to adapt these things. And that's another hope with this stuff is that it helps someone who's in that early on phase to realize that hey, you can go out and chase this stuff. And a lot of times that what people say is possible is a it's a perception and you can change that perception. So
It is about perception, isn't it? Because you found, I mean, you have a sense of humor. I know that. Okay. I know you
yeah.
do. No, I know you do. And you're doing physically a lot of things. Like I saw your pictures, you're doing snowboarding and you're doing all kinds of things on Facebook that's just so inspiring. So when you find your positive attitude, I want to know from you. I know you've had a lot of support. Your parents sound like wonderful people and you've had wonderful support. How are you finding it? How are you being received in everyday life? How are we doing? How are we doing to help you and anyone that's disabled? Are we getting there?
You mean like society as a whole?
How are we doing? Can we do better? What can we do? What can we be doing?
The only thing I would say is stop walking on eggshells around people with disabilities. It takes me a long time. Sometimes it takes me a long time to get people to kind of ease up a little bit and realize like, hey, I'm just a normal dude still. And I know I've spoken with other people, whether it's blindness or other disabilities that have
Yeah.
that same experience. Stop being weird about it. That would be my advice.
Well, I
But
think everyone wants to be, kind and understanding, but they're not quite sure what they can say and what they cannot say. And I think,
yeah.
after saying that, I can understand where you're coming from. You're just like everybody's all the same. You just have something you had to overcome, and you have. So now you want everyone to treat you exactly the way you want to be before all of this happened, right?
And
Except,
that's
of course, for the
easier.
obvious, right?
Yeah, it's easier said than done for me because I have a younger sister who has Down syndrome. So I've grown up being around
Okay.
people with disabilities. So it's yeah, I guess it's a little unfair for me to just say it like that because that isn't any different for me. But that would be you asked, so that would be my touching point.
Yeah, that I want to know because I think, I know you said just kind of be yourself and relax and don't be so tense. And you make it easy, Zach. I just want you to know that because, I'm talking to you and I feel like I've known you for 100 years. You're just such a kind, warm, open person. Plus, you're willing to talk about it. That makes a big difference too.
Yeah, I think it does. I think another thing definitely. Sometimes people are a little caught off guard by how I lost my sight, which is understandable. It's kind of heavy, but usually once I can get someone to crack a blind joke around me, then I know, like, okay, we've made it past that that point. Now we're going to get into the normalcy a little bit.
Right. It's, I think what you're bringing forward is everything that you have done, your app, overcoming alcoholism, overcoming, I mean, just the thought that you now have another diagnosis and you're still finding a positive attitude should tell us all, man, we can all look at the future with positive eyes and say, okay, this is the way it is. You're blind, you can't see, but you certainly can understand that you have to draw strength from inside, right?
Yeah, and that's a choice. I mean, I talk about that a lot, but it really is, as cliche as it is all about perspective. Like I could still be living with my parents and not doing anything with my life and be getting a disability check every month and not doing anything with it or drinking my sorrows away for until it kills me. Like this is these are all choices we have. Everybody's going through stuff, and I chose to reclaim my life. So,
That is
yeah.
that is amazing. There are so one thing you don't know, Zach, and I've never revealed this to you. My one of my children, my daughter, my oldest daughter, had a problem with drugs and alcohol her entire life and most of her adult life, and she passed away last year at Christmas time. So before I don't want to break down or anything, but she just could not seem to get control of her addictions. She certainly beat the drug addiction, but she did not beat the alcoholism. So one of the reasons I had you on, Zach, is because you would have been the very person that she could have had a positive outlook about life. So it means a lot to me that you're spreading the word around to help people who are struggling, so they can see that. Excuse my emotion. So they can see that you know, with the proper help and with just finding that inside that strength, not, that you don't have to go to the darkest side of life. And even if you do, you can come back out, So I really truly appreciate your message, Zach. It means a lot to everyone here, and it means a lot to me personally. Thank you.
Don't ever apologize for feeling emotions over that. I can't believe that you just did that. I'm so sorry that you've had to
Thank
go
you.
through that. I mean, I don't have kids. I can't imagine what that would be like. But see, everybody has their stuff.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And she was a beautiful person, and we did everything we could, and just unfortunately there are people that just they just don't make it, Zach. And so you are sending a message out to people, and people who have loved ones that need to hear that, to need to know you can overcome things. Even if it seems dark, you can overcome it, and you just have to find that positive strength inside yourself. So I just wanted to share that with you because you're such a nice, warm, wonderful person to do this. So just know you've touched the lives of many people that you may not even be aware of.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'd like to touch on something else there because
Go ahead.
I think this is important and is another thing that isn't talked about a lot. I think probably because it's not the most, you know, when people go through things, we try and out of compassion give the most generous light as or perspective to view those things through. And like I know my parents struggled with me attempting suicide and this fact that they didn't see it, especially we relationship wise weren't in a great spot when I shot myself. And also, they were at my apartment the day before I shot myself and had no idea that I was in that bad of a spot. But that's on me. Like that. there needs to be a level of accountability there. Like my suicide attempt is on me, and it's the same thing for people dealing with addiction. So you like you mentioned other families being out there with this stuff, and that's something I try and touch on is, and I feel comfortable saying this because I've been through it and I've survived it. Like
Right.
totally normal to feel at fault or some share of the blame for those things, but it's not on you. Like, and you as a mother, that's not on you. Again, totally normal, and you have all the right to feel that and to grieve that, but it's also okay to accept, you've done what you can, and at the end of the day, it's, I mean, that's all you can do, you know?
Thank you, Zach. That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you. There's a lot of grief process that comes with it, and that's why I had you on. I want you to know truly with all my heart, you're an inspiration. You're just such a wonderful man. Your future is so wonderful because you made it that way. Your parents, I know, are very proud of you. Because if you were my son, I certainly would be. I'm proud of you already. So
Thank you.
I wanted to share that with you that you're making a difference. And this app that you have, it's been since 2023. Is there a name for the app that people can get it, or help me out here?
Yeah, I didn't mention it because I actually just recently, within the last month, took it off of the App Store
Oh,
because,
no problem then. No problem.
yeah, between all the stuff that I have going on now, I didn't have time to keep up with it.
Sure.
And
Okay. And
so,
you did mention a bit about it, but I'm learning more about apps, Zach. I'm a little bit older than you. So I didn't
yeah,
understand that. So okay, so it's not out there right now, but you're figuring something out.
there will be, yeah, there's another project in the works that will be, and, people can, if you Google me or go to my website, you can keep
Sure.
up with all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, now your podcast, Going in Blind, right?
Yes, it's Going In Blind with Zach Tidwell.
With
And
Zach
it's
Tidwell. Okay, so I'm
everywhere that everywhere you can find podcasts. So YouTube and then basically any podcasting app.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'll have everything on here, all of your links and everything we need, Zach,
Okay.
to make sure that everybody can get a hold of you. Now, what is the best place to get a hold of you? Is it is it your website? Is it LinkedIn? Where do you prefer people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website is if you want to reach out to me for information on the book or for speaking engagements and stuff like that, it's zachtidwell.net. And there's a submission form on there so you can, contact me and I'll email you back when I get the chance and we can go from there. But I'm all over the place. So
Okay.
yeah.
I wrote that down too. So I've got all the notes here. We're going to have that all up there for you, Zach. Now, my next question is, will you come back and do another show with us?
Yeah, maybe when the book is out, maybe that'd be a good time. I'd
Perfect.
be absolutely be open to
Do you
that.
have a
Thank you.
title for the book yet or no? And you don't have to tell us if you don't, or
I
if
have a
you don't want
working
to say.
title. I have
Was
a,
that?
I have a working title. I'm not sure that that's gonna be it.
Okay, so we'll leave it for now
Yeah.
because when you come back, then we'll have a title, I hope. Okay.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah. So, Zach, you've been wonderful today. I cannot thank you enough. I really want you to come back. And everyone, for Zach, you can go to zachtidwell.net and you can get a hold of him there. I'll make sure that all his information is here, all the social media that we're going to put it out. It'll all be ready for you. Zach, again, thank you. You've been wonderful. And we only wish the best for you. And I know your future is so bright. As I go further here, I'm Teresa Aker with Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. Please subscribe to my channel so we can bring you back such great content. Go to Zach's podcast. We certainly want you to take a look there. He's gonna have a lot of information, a lot of inspiration for all of you. So thank you again. I hope you're all having a great day, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Bye bye now.